Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, we're going to react to 10 times world leaders destroyed their own country, like the whole country. I mean, you've been put there to do a job, lead the people, improve living conditions, all that good stuff, right? So, how have you managed to ruin the place unless you went in there with the intentions of just stealing, which unfortunately happens in a lot of countries in the developing world, like Nigeria, where, I'm from, ethnically, just is been blighted with corrupt leaders, just one after the other. They get in power and they just steal the country's assets and just pocket the money for themselves. Happens all over the world. It's just there's no compassion for the people whatsoever.
For us, it's about a new beginning. For us, it's about the end of a tyranny rule.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down political leaders who, whether overall or during specific historical periods, were the prime movers behind terrible events in their nation.
No, la democracia debe ser, dijo Abraham Lincoln, gobierno del pueblo.
Number 10. Kim Jong Il, North
This has got to be Kim Jong-un's dad, right? It's got to be.
Korea.
Kim Jong Il played the crazy card and played it with his own peculiar style.
While not officially taking power until 1997, Kim took over responsibility for North Korea after the passing of his father, Kim Il-sung, in 1994. Soon, the country fell into extreme famine. While the exact figure is unknown, it's speculated that over 2 million lost their lives to starvation by 1999.
Reliant on diminishing sources of aid, the North Korean regime has reacted to the failed harvest by slashing food rations to just 200 grams per person per day.
This was a far cry from the economic situation North Korea experienced in the 1960s and 70s, when the country was doing better than South Korea. By 2006, reports of North Korea testing nuclear weaponry caused the world to be nervous as the secretive country escalated its arsenal, especially given Kim's aggression towards South Korea, his luxurious lifestyle as his citizens struggled with poverty, and his authoritarianism. Number 9.
Crazy how in the 60s and 70s, North Korea was doing better than South Korea. Because when we think about South Korea, we think about Samsung, we think about Hyundai, LG, massive companies. And to think that once upon a time, North Korea was the bigger of the two, it's just, it's unbelievable.
Bengal. Great Britain's colonial rule of India included various atrocities. It's estimated that millions of people perished from famine over the years by the Raj diverting resources to Britain. Infamously, as Bengal lost millions to starvation in the 1940s, Winston Churchill responded with insults against Indians.
There was also
the 1919 Amritsar massacre, where British soldiers fired upon peaceful protesters, taking the lives of up to 1,500 people.
Should we issue a warning, sir? They've had their warning. No meeting.
But none of this could have happened without Mir Jafar's influence in creating the empire centuries earlier. In 1757, he was a commander in the Bengal army, and during the Battle of Plassey, he defected to the British East India Company, allowing them to win and get a foothold in the region. Number 8. Bashar al-Assad.
1,500 people, firing upon people that, were just there protesting is insane. Just, how could you do that?
Syria.
But Bashar al-Assad soon picked up his father's habits and went back to a severe autocratic regime, tolerating little dissent.
According to the Corruption Perceptions Index, between 2020 and 2023, Syria shared the title of the second most corrupt country in the world. Shortly after Sarraj became the nation's president in 2000, nepotism and corruption quickly began to run rampant as those with connections were given preference. He sent secret police agents to spy, abduct, and abuse his citizens as he cemented his dictatorship, causing enormous human rights violations.
As long as you have the public support, it means you are defending the people. If you kill the people, they will be against you. That's common logic, common sense.
In 2011, the Syrian civil war erupted after citizens protested Assad's murderous reign, and he used soldiers to violently shut down demonstrations. To date, around hundreds of thousands have lost their lives, and millions have been displaced as the country's economy collapsed. Assad has even used chemical weapons during the war, violating international law.
There were no internal demands for the president to depart. It's important for a president to leave, or to leave his responsibilities, to be more precise, when the people demand it, not due to external interference or external wars.
Number 7.
I've seen pictures and video of Syria and Libya, from decades ago, and it's crazy to compare what they used to look like to what they are now. Like, go on Google and check them out yourself. It's quite shocking.
Hugo Chavez, Venezuela.
Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, from this rostrum, the President of the United States, the gentleman to whom I refer as the devil, came here.
Wow.
After an unsuccessful attempt to take power with a coup in 1992, Chavez became president of Venezuela in 1999. He used the country's vast oil resources to fund many social programs to eradicate inequality. For a time, Venezuela was doing well, but the wheels fell off soon after the president began authoritarian methods, as the country became over-reliant on oil.
Veamos como iguales. Y no este caballero que tienen ustedes de presidente que camina como, ¿cómo se llama? El vaquero este. Jong Il, yes.
Chavez instigated propaganda, suppressed the press, and arrested critics as corruption infected the nation. Under his regime in 2010, Venezuela's murder rate quadrupled. Chavez's policies and the fall of oil valuation led to a vast socioeconomic crisis in the country as poverty, starvation, and disease began spiraling out of control, an effect that's still being experienced today.
The basic food, milk, rice, soap, toothpaste, these things disappeared.
Number 6. Augusto Pinochet, Chile. In 1973, as commander-in-chief of the army, Pinochet led a coup against the democratically elected Salvador Allende, installing a military junta. The dictator immediately targeted political opponents. It's believed upwards of 3,000 people were executed by Pinochet's regime, with tens of thousands persecuted and arrested. His tight hold on the country didn't stop Chile from suffering a massive economic crisis in 1982, while his personal bank accounts grew.
Pinochet thought that the CIA training activities of counterinsurgency was not enough. They had to kill.
After stepping down as president in 1990 and enjoying his Senator for Life role, Pinochet was arrested in 1998 for human rights violations, tax fraud, and many more charges. In 2020, Chile celebrated when its citizens overwhelmingly voted to rewrite the country's constitution written by Pinochet decades before and install reforms.
But the majority of the population still sees Pinochet as a dictator, and that there were systematic violations of human rights.
Number 5.
It's always interesting, the country, the people, they suffer, but the leadership, they financially just continue to grow. Even when the country's under immense sanctions, they always find a way, the leaders, to keep on getting richer at the expense of the people they're meant to be looking after.
Saddam Hussein, Iraq.
Saddam will resort to violence yet again. But this time, it's an extreme kind of violence with a dual purpose.
In 1979, when Hussein took formal control of Iraq, he quickly got to work in violently purging his Ba'ath Party of opponents. Next, the country's economy took off due to the abundance of oil. But it didn't last, as international sanctions from controversial wars caused the price to drop significantly, and Hussein slashed public health funding massively.
Saddam's strong-arm tactics have always served him well at home. But to the rest of the world, his armed aggression is a dangerous provocation.
On top of the executions of citizens and innumerable human rights violations, Hussein persecuted the Kurdish community with the Anfal campaign. This led to the deployment of chemical weapons in Halabja in 1988, causing up to 5,000 to perish and up to 10,000 to be injured. Hussein's notorious reputation contributed to the U.S. and its allies invading in 2003, removing him from power.
The UN inspectors are demanding to get out back in to carry on their search. If we refuse, there's no telling how the international community will respond.
Number 4.
I mean, obviously Saddam Hussein was, barbaric in some of his methods, like the chemical weapons, but I think from what we've seen, there can be no real argument that removing him essentially created some of the terror groups, you know, ISIS, that were even more savage, you know. Not saying that we shouldn't have removed Saddam, but there was a cause and effect.
Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe.
And when Zimbabwe celebrated independence, Mugabe, the overwhelming winner of elections, was in power. And soon showing rival liberation fighters what he'd do to keep it.
Coming into power as a revolutionary, freeing Zimbabwe from British colonialism in 1980 as prime minister and then president in 1987, Mugabe seemed like a leader of hope. After all, he promised to empower citizens as he grew the country's education system. However, his regime soon began arresting, executing, and abusing opponents. Mugabe was also responsible for the Gukurahundi, a series of genocides that took the lives of over 20,000 Ndebele and Kalanga people.
Because of the economic situation, people are bound to leave any country. And they have not just left my country, they have left other countries as well to go to Britain, Australia, and other places.
In 2000, people began occupying farms in Zimbabwe, which Mugabe encouraged. This, along with governmental overspending, caused hyperinflation in the country. In 2009, foreign currencies were used instead of Zimbabwe's own. A coup in 2017 removed Mugabe from power.
So it's a bit hypocritical, you know, so to speak, that he's being applauded and given all these accolades now, when for the past 12, 18 months, they have treated him like a leper.
Number 3, Benito.
Yeah, Mugabe, like I think I saw a video, or no, it was a photo of a young guy, Zimbabwean, with like a barrel full of money, like of notes, and there was like a loaf of bread next to it. And that's how much of the currency, it must have been like millions and millions of Zimbabwe dollars to buy like a loaf of bread. It was just insane.
Mussolini, Italy. After World War I, the Italian journalist-turned-soldier Mussolini developed and spread fascist views. After the March on Rome in 1922, Mussolini was installed as prime minister. Soon he began his reign of terror, turning the country...
Look at his posture, you know, it's such a weird, like looking down his chin, or like very, very, very strange.
...into a police state. Over his reign, Mussolini committed multiple war crimes. He used concentration camps and chemical weapons in Libya and Ethiopia. When World War II got underway and Italy joined Germany, the atrocities increased as Italy invaded Yugoslavia, Albania, and Greece. After being removed from power and reinstated by Germany, Mussolini turned Italy into a puppet state. A civil war led to Mussolini's removal from power in 1945 and his execution.
As the fascisti regulars marched into the capital city, Italy's King Victor Emmanuel had no choice but to call upon their leader to form a new cabinet to meet the uncontrolled chaos that gripped the ancient Mediterranean country.
Number 2. Pol Pot, Cambodia. Ruling Cambodia...
People like Mussolini, you know, and the other fascist leaders that the world has seen, you know, I just think what made them so warped in their thinking, the experiences they must have had over the course of their life, perhaps, but then you're the leader of a country, you know, how bad could your life really have been, you know, for you to now suddenly hate like entire groups of other people, you know, like if you were dirt poor, I suppose you could kind of say, okay, fine, he's been beaten up by life a little bit, but you're the president of a country, you know, you're living in a mansion, you're eating delicious meals. Why do you hate this other group of people so much, you know?
From 1975 to 1979, Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge were responsible for a shocking body count. In less than half a decade, millions of people were killed. Mass graves were dug all over the land in what became known as the killing fields. Many others were sent to labor camps or prisons. Pol Pot wanted to change the class system of the country by emphasizing physical labor while targeting intellectuals and city inhabitants. As a result, education in Cambodia was decimated, as around 90% of schools were destroyed. Wow. Even after Pol Pot lost power and fought the government from the jungles, many children missed out on education due to the lack of resources.
Usually when they arrest the man, they also arrest the wife, and when they have children, they also arrest the children.
Why?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. Adolf Hitler, Germany. After being elected as Chancellor in 1933 in an election destabilized by violence and intimidation, Hitler soon ruled Germany as a dictator, installing himself as the nation's Führer with a totalitarian ideology and a deranged fixation with ostensible racial purity. In 1939, he started World War II, which eventually cost tens of millions of lives, including the millions of Jews and other targeted groups deliberately murdered in the Holocaust.
Die große Not unseres Volkes, die uns einst ergriffen hat und die uns zusammenführte.
In 1945, before losing the war, Hitler issued the Nero Decree, where he demanded the destruction of Germany's infrastructure to stop Allied forces from using it. His name has become synonymous with hate, terror, and destruction.
Das Einzige, was ich mir zugute halten kann, ist, dass ich die Juden mit offenem Visier bekämpft habe. Und dass ich den deutschen Lebensraum vom jüdischen Gift gesäubert habe.
What world leaders could also be listed here? King Leopold II? Mao Zedong?
Sure.
Nero? Let us know in the comments. Check out these other clips from...
Wow. Heavy hitter. It's interesting, you know, that how power, like, what's that quote from absolute power corrupts absolutely. You know, when you give someone, or when they take complete authority of a country, I think it's rare that that person maintains the benefit and prosperity of the country as their number one motive. Like, I think over time, I just think it's human nature. Like, when you got no one to answer to, when you're not held accountable by anybody and anything, standards inevitably slip, you know, and greed just takes hold. I would love to find some kind of poll, like a data set that analyzes all the dictators that we've had in the 20th and 21st century, and even maybe a bit earlier than that, and just how many of those led to positive outcomes for those countries. I'd love to know. I mean, I would have to guess it's probably less than 30%, maybe even less than that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.